everyone, welcome back to the MHP Show podcast. I'm your host, Derek Vickers, and on the MHP Show, we talk about anything and everything that has to do with this crazy little business of mobile home parks. And I got two guys with me today. I don't know if I'm proud to have them, ashamed to have them, or what, but they're here. And before I get into these guys, I want you guys to go check out go.parkinvestingpro.com. That's my free webinar I did. I go over the basics of mobile home park investing all the way up to underwriting and closing a deal. You could literally take the information from that and go buy your first mobile home park. It's really kind of the basic things that you need to know, and it's really all you need to know. Of course, there's other stuff you need to know when you get into operating, but that'll give you a good foundation. So check that out at go.parkinvestingpro.com. So today, again, this is going to be a fun episode, guys. So I've got Armand Violi here with MHPvalue.com and CRE Deal Accelerator, and I've got Spencer Davidson with X Acquisitions. What's up, guys? How you doing?
What up? What up? Thanks for the shout outs, Derek. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Spencer, you doing all right over there, man?
Connection.
Yeah, I don't know. So maybe his connection's messed up. And so, yeah, so glad to have you guys on. You know, it's always good as, you know, we're all pretty active on social media and things. And I think, you know, people around the industry are trying to go get deals out there, and we're hunting in the trenches all the time. And so I think it'll be good for us to kind of talk about, hey, what are we seeing out there in the market? And, you know, what are you guys running into? And then, you know, we'll just kind of see where the conversation takes us after that. But I'll start with you, Armand. I know you're hunting for deals every day. I know what I'm seeing, but I would love to see and hear what you're running into.
Yeah. So, one, I apologize, viewers, if you guys are watching this on somewhere like YouTube. I am in New York City in a little studio, so my background's not the typical. But yeah, overall in the market, I mean, obviously seller expectations aren't at reality, but that's to be a given when rates have gone up so quickly. I actually have the opposite view of a lot of people. I still think deals are easy to come by, and I think just we're jaded because it's been so easy with low interest rates, and like sellers expectations 3 to 5 years ago was like below what it's worth. So it was so easy to find profitable deals over the last 5 years that now it's finally tough and there's competition in the marketplace. People think it's difficult to find deals, but like I have 7 properties under contract. I'm underwriting 8 different ones. 3 I'm in talks about taking out as listings, and like I don't know if it's just my deal sourcing's ramped up faster than the decline in workable deals, but I don't think it's that tough out there. But yeah, seller expectations for the most part. We just are dealing with more delusional sellers than before, purely because those crazy prices they heard for the last 2-3 years isn't happening now with the current interest rates. But I don't think it's that hard finding deals out there. And I know you guys have still been getting deals done. And Spencer seems like he's making a ton of moves. So yeah, I'm curious what his
Yeah, I mean, and you know, to your point, you know, there was a lot of people, you know, in the, you know, it was easy to get deals to work.
yeah.
Like I always say, if I looked at 20 deals in 2021, I could figure out really how to make them all work if I really
Yeah.
wanted to. But now, you know, more skilled individuals like yourself that are in the business for the long run, you didn't just hear, or maybe you did, like, hey, it was easy to make money in commercial real estate. I'm going to get into the business. And
Yeah.
some people, like, now that the easy money flows out, people leave. And so it doesn't surprise me at all. But you hear that guy, you know, you got 7 deals under contract.
Yeah.
So what do you attribute that to mostly?
Man, I don't know. I think I just think we still have an easier marketplace compared to other asset classes to getting deals done, just less competition. I mean, how many people are really hunting mobile home parks versus any other asset class nationwide? And then obviously there's more competitive markets. Like I know you guys down in Florida. I mean, that's probably tougher to come by solid deals that pencil on paper just because it's really hard to kind of see where the like some people could really get aggressive on the upside of deals, but like most of the properties in the Midwest and Southeast that I do, I mean, deals are still happening. We're not seeing what most other asset classes where people are talking about, oh, we're at a standstill and transactions aren't happening. Like we're having closings still, even on our entire team. Yeah, it's slower than the lower interest rate times, but I feel like my business has still been steadily picking up in recent times. But that's because I also have great deal sourcing strategies, CRE deal accelerators.
Yeah, dude, you do, man, you do, and
Shameless
I
plug.
mean,
Yeah,
got to.
look, baby, we're coming out, baby. We're selling products.
Hey, man, dude, you can plug
I dig it.
all the hell you want on this show. I don't care. You know, I want everybody to win. I want everybody.
Yeah.
If you like, look, I know what it takes to kind of put together that stuff.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's not easy to put that shit together. So, plug, baby, plug all you want. Plug all
Yeah.
you want.
Hey, go.parkinvestingpro.com, baby.
There we go. There we go. But Spencer, man, so what are you seeing out there? I know we talk regularly, and
Yeah,
but so to tell everybody what you're seeing
like
out
every
there.
3 hours.
Yeah, something like that. Something like that.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's I'm newish to the space, I guess. So I've really been tackling the mobile home park biz last 4 months or so. Um, but I'm in Florida. I prospect everything Florida. So I mean, I just think right now I think if you have liquidity right now, if you can do cash deals, obviously, I think you're going to it's a little bit more, because a lot of these sellers are mom and pop, so they think cash is king always, right? And so they don't really understand that really the difference between bank financing and cash. So if you tell them you have a cash offer, and you can make it work with cash, then I think you're going to get a little bit better of a rate. And I also think too, I'm doing more smaller parks. So I'm not really dealing with a lot of institutional sellers. So they're not screaming for 4 or 5 caps right now. Everything I do is off market. There's no offense, Armand, no broker involved. So I'm going direct to seller. So they're I might be able to snag a 10 cap, still. But it's still, just doing the due diligence process and going direct to seller on these things. And for me, and then obviously if you got a guy like Armand that can hook you up, then obviously go that route. But the way I'm finding deals is just direct to seller. And then too, it's knowing I think someone wanting to get into the mobile home park space, they really have to fully understand what they want. Cause I know a guy like Derek, you like tenant owned stuff, preferably. I mean, if you can find a park owned deal that you can convert to tenant owned, yes. But, I've got investors that, they love park owned stuff because they know they're going to be able to lower their cash basis by selling the park owned units for 20, 30K a piece, right? So it lowers their cash basis, which then, increases their return on investment. So it's just unique, so I think from somebody like myself, who's in the assignment business, it's just knowing what these end buyers want and how you underwrite. There's multiple ways to underwrite a deal, essentially.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, direct to seller, straight to, guy who has, a Trump 2024 flag in his yard. Like that's the
Yeah.
people that we want, man. And that's the kind of people that you need to go to because they're going to have the most obviously value add opportunities available. I mean, that deal that I drove today, I mean, the one in up in the Ocala area, it's pretty nasty.
Yeah, man.
The guy hasn't taken care of it. He's probably, who knows what all's going on in there. But there's value there if you want to take on that work. And what were you
Yeah.
going to say, Spencer?
Yeah, I mean, it's yeah, dude. It's the stuff that's trading, in my opinion, at least the deals I'm doing right now, they're not like we talked about. It's a lot of value add opportunity where they don't understand what it's unique because like Tampa, Orlando, you guys know that lot rents going up crazy. But what I'm seeing, I'm in markets in Florida where it's lot rents 240, park owns 1100. So
Makes a lot of sense, huh?
yeah, I'm sitting here and I'm going, okay, well, you're getting 1100 for a park owned unit, but you're only charging 240 lot rent. Well, I'm gonna hammer you on the lot rent price, and usually I can get a better price because they don't really know what they have. And so there's some markets still in Florida that are still behind, I think, to what it could be for potential and pricing. And that's why, mainly in the panhandle right now, I'm crushing it up here because it's just that's how it is. I mean, I'm $1,400-$1,500 a month park owned, and I'm asking what their lot rent is, like $300. I'm like, okay. So then I got to try and convince them that, hey, I'm not buying this on park owned. No bank will finance this on a park owned unit, park owned deal. They don't like it. So we got to go by your lot rent price roughly, or try and figure out something that works in between. So just a lot of potential, I think, in some areas in Florida that people aren't really looking into because it's not a urban area or a metro area, but
Yeah.
still some good deals and good demand.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, unfortunately, wherever you go in Florida, I think it's probably hotter from a
Yeah,
seller getting called perspective
yeah.
than even some rural areas in other states, just because it's Florida. And I mean, like, there hasn't been many sellers that we've talked to, I don't think, that haven't at least been called. I think
Oh,
when we come in, we're coming in as just, we're regular guys, like, trying to buy a deal. Like, it's a different conversation than, maybe they're having with other people. Like, I had a guy call a VA call me the other day, and it was the worst freaking call. I think I sent you one message that I got from a guy, but the VA was just calling, and I've had VAs call, so nothing against it. But like, they're like, "Hey, do you want to sell your park at XYZ address?" And I said, "No." "Okay. Would you consider taking an offer?" "No." "Do you want an offer in 6 months?" "No." Do you have any other commercial properties that you would sell?" "No." And then she hung up. I'm like,
Right.
"No, like, don't engage me. Don't ask how I'm doing." Like, there wasn't any like getting on common ground in the call. And so I think if you have like a VA calling or something like that, like that, I mean, you're just shitting money away at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I like to add to that. Like that kind of adds to or it goes in what I was talking about. I think the barrier to threshold of finding deals, although it's tougher that people are saying in the mobile home park industry now, it's still easier than most asset classes to still find good deals. Like Spencer, because I know like if you had to sit down and you just wiped your pipeline clean right now, you're probably confident I'm going to have at least 5 potential sellers by the end of this week, just calling yourself. Forget about doing anything fancy. Like a lot of people are always trying to overthink how to find deals. And really, like our space is still not that competitive to the point. Like if you just sat down and made the calls, you're going to find potential
Yeah,
sellers. There are deals out there to
yeah.
get. It's just a little bit
100%,
tough.
100%.
Yeah, just a little bit tougher with higher rates. But man, like I still think we're in like a great space to find profitable deals.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. And like, I tell like people in my program, if you go to go.parkinvestingpro.com,
Yeah.
but like, if you do the work, you're gonna find deals. I mean,
Yeah.
like, you can't. It's impossible not to, right? You're just putting in the work and you're actually doing the effort and not worrying about as much, hey, if the numbers are right, because in this business, the numbers are going to suck. There's no system that's going to give you every single correct number, direct sell, the seller's cell phone number. Like, we've got our stuff hidden now. It'd be harder for you to find, like, you can probably find my number and maybe some of my partners' numbers on lists before, but
Yeah.
now, if we had set it up correctly in the beginning, it would have been harder for you to actually find that data, right? So that's the one of the advantages of this business, the fragmentation, but the data is so bad that if you can somehow figure out how to get, 10 numbers when most people are getting 4,
Yeah.
then your ratio is going to be better. And just from like doing the work and not saying, "Oh my God, all the numbers are bad." Well, yeah, you might call all day and most of the numbers are bad, but you
Yeah,
might call the next day and they're all good.
yeah,
Like, it's just it's numbers.
Yeah.
yeah, man. And I think to add to that too, just from somebody who calls all the time, I, like people are going to get it in their head that numbers are bad, so they don't call.
Yeah.
And dude, I've literally driven by mobile home parks and been like, Derek, you were with me. We drove by a mobile home park in Cocoa. The number was on the guy's sign. It says mobile home park and the phone number. I just called that number. The dude's like, yeah, I'll meet you in 20 minutes. Like, what's your offer?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah, that's right. That was that was the Vero Beach. That was in Vero Beach.
Oh, Vero, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we freaking met with this dude, and he's like, "I'd freaking run this block of Vero Beach. I own this and this and this. I'll sell it all for 30 million." Like,
Dude had a Bentley in his like warehouse or something that he was, I don't know. It was funny. But it's just that simple sometimes. Now, does that mean that deal's gonna happen? Or I mean, the guy was nuts. I mean, You know, so I'm super unrealistic, and he's trying to sell like 8 other things too with it, like a restaurant and a tire business and all that. But ultimately, the moral of the story is, dude, just pick up the phone and call, because you don't know who's on the other end. And if it's a bad number, then just, you know, all you got to do is open your web browser, Google it a little bit, and I'm sure you'll find something or get close to it, you know. And yeah, I just think so many people getting ahead of like, and you see all these people running ads on Facebook. I see it all the time. Cold calling is dead. Like, get the fuck out of here,
Yeah, like
dude.
people are crazy in how they overthink this whole deal sourcing, like finding deals in a tough market. Like, this is not a tough market.
No.
It's not easy, but I mean, dude, it's like deals are happening. And I think since the interest rates went up, and yeah, seller expectations are higher than they should be, it's almost like people have morphed themselves into like it's a trend just to tell everyone, yeah, man, dude, the market's so tough. We just can't find anything out there at pencils. It's like, how many people have you talked to this week?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think
Yeah.
right now I just got back like, yeah, another contract. Dude, it's like I think we got like 6 or 7 this month under contract, and it's December 7th, 8th.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that are closing in the next 60 days. And it's like that all came from cold calling. Dude, $144 a month is my phone bill. That's all it takes for me to
Yeah.
get into business. Like, seriously, that's all it took. Like, and Derek knows. Like, you know, he's like, I just that's all it takes, man. Like, I don't know how to you don't need $100,000 to set aside for ad spend and all this other bull crap mailers. Sure, if you have that, great, but like, it doesn't take much. The barrier to entry, it doesn't isn't much. And if you don't have the money to buy deals yourself, like I didn't, you know, at the time. I mean, it's like, dude, just hit people up like Armand, Derek. Like, hey, if Armand, if someone came to you and was like, dude, this I got a seller, but I don't know what to do with him. You probably would some sort of, I don't know if you can do it with your license, I guess, but some sort like compensate him somehow. If he was like,
Yeah.
hey, I got a listing, but I have no idea to do with it.
If someone has a workable deal, we'll find a way to make money from it.
Exactly. And that's what I did for Derek. Like, I was just calling. I didn't know. I was just calling random, you know, properties. And I was like, well, this guy's in the mobile home park business. So, oh, hey, Derek, I got a deal. I have no idea what to do with it.
Yeah.
But like, here you go. It's free. I'm not asking for anything, but here you go. You know, and
Yeah.
4 months later, dude, it's insane how much money we got coming.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think too, and you know, you mentioned the people that say cold calling is dead. Like, you know, like I guess to a certain, it's not. I guess is what I'm getting at, and like that's just, you know, unfortunately, like the person that's scared to make cold calls, which I get it because I used to be scared to make them. Will now use that as a justification to not get on the phone. They're going to be like, well, I'm not going to make calls today. You know, I'm going to figure out another way to get these leads because there must be another way. And so they search online and they don't find anything, or they try to text one owner and they get an answer back like Armand did on your post the other day where the seller said fuck off or fuck you or something like, and then they're like, oh my God, you know, I'm just not doing anything. Right.
Yeah.
And then they get stuck. They
Yeah.
don't move. And then before you know it, a week goes by and a month goes by and like, hey, you know, you've been making calls. Well, I made a couple, you know, this week. Right. It's just it's reps, right? It's reps, it's repetition. It's actually getting in there and doing that work. Anyway, I hate the cold calling is dead, people. Fucking
dude,
Grant's got a whole office of people cold calling, and his business does like 150, $200 million in
yeah, that's just
sales every
that's just
year.
a technology, but that's just a sales business. I mean, that's not even including all the other businesses he owns
Yeah.
that probably follows his
Yeah.
programs. And yeah, it's just fascinating, dude. Like, do people? And I was a residential agent for 8 years, so and I was a broker, so like the same thing in that industry. So if you are residential or whatever, you're a broker listening to this, I mean, and Armand can attest to it, and we're telling you, it's the only like it's not the only way to get business, but it is a huge way to separate yourself from everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
If you got no money, no connections, it's like put in the sweat equity and just get through the numbers and you'll find
yeah,
deals. Once you get like you, for example, because I know, all right, you just popped into space, you're working with Derek now. And all right, maybe you get a 13 unit under contract that's too small. Derek doesn't want to buy it. You can still go make 50 grand off that deal. And then now if someone wants to say, all right, I don't want to let's go spend mailers. Now it's like, oh, you just
Yeah.
you had the cold call a couple months, and next thing you know.
yeah. And yeah, I mean, 50 or 100, you know.
Yeah. Like you could bring the deal. Like, look, if you've got a good deal, You got a good deal that pencils. Bring it to us. You know, we've got a list. We know tons of people around the industry. We're well connected. We can probably get someone to, we could probably help dispo this deal and we could work
Mhm.
something out
Yeah.
um on that. And do you think like, I wanted to bring this up like, the uh, you know, entitledness that sort of goes around with you guys and your younger generations here. It all started with me, the millennials, right? Do you think that has something to do with people like, and I think people get so stuck in a 9 to 5. So, for example, and
Yeah.
I'll get back to my question. I worked a 9 to 5. I was a disaster. Then I got into insurance sales where I had to cold call, which was actual work.
Yeah.
The 9 to 5 I was in, I thought it was work, but it was just mindless me fucking going in and sitting all day. And so when I had to do real work, it was like, oh my God. So do you think some of that like entitled mindset of people like, oh my God, dude, I can't make cold calls. I'm not going to do that. I'm
Yeah.
not going
Well,
to make cold calls.
so I have a theory on it. I'm Spencer. I'm curious to hear your sentiment. How old are you, by the way, Spencer?
Dude, I'm a millennial. I was just gonna say I'm 28, guys. Come on.
Okay, 20. You're a couple
I
years.
snuck in.
I think it's this, right? So as when I grew up, and I think this is why the younger generation doesn't believe in cold calling, or they like to assume it's dead. Is like when I grew up, I never spoke to people on the phone. Like our generation spends like we grow up, all of our friends, we still text each other. Like I call my friends, but it's like most of my friends, I don't just call on the phone. I just shoot them a text and we'll have whole conversations through text message. Meanwhile, the older generation still does calls. So I think the younger generation, because most young guys don't have like the natural want to speak on the phones and stuff, when they run into any resistance when they're cold calling, they already write it off like, oh, it's not working, when that's just
Mm,
part of learning how to converse on the phone. Like that's a skill in itself. And while that comes natural to like your older generation, us young guys automatically assume that does not work. So if you could kind of set metrics, make the calls, and then get a little bit of success, you realize, oh, wait a minute, what I used to think wasn't working does actually work really hard. I just have to learn kind of the nuances behind it. And I know it sounds ridiculous because we're talking about just speaking to someone on the phone, but I think that is like such a undervalued skill to the younger generation. And now I do think real estate is shifting to getting away from phone calls. And I have a kind of weird theory in like a 10, 20-year trajectory that cold calling is going to die, but like, and not necessarily die, but um, it's like a cheat code to finding deals, especially with the older generation, because while like those old mom and pops, you're not going to reach them with Facebook ads,
nope.
internet ads. Some of them still don't even text message. Like they have a cell phone, they don't know how to even open the text message app. So like the only way to get a hold of them is calling. And how many people this day are really willing to sit down and make good cold calls and not outsource it to a crappy VA? A really small amount of them. So if you have just a little bit of skills on the phone and are willing to make the dials, it's still really easy to find deals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'll kind of answer both parts because I think Derek asked if they're entitled.
Yeah.
So I'll answer that first. Yeah, dude, you were talking about a 9 to 5, right? And how people aren't willing to work a 9 to 5, or they're used to working a 9 to 5. Dude, my thing is, I don't even think they're willing to work a 9 to 5. Like, they're not willing to sit their ass down from 9 to 5 and do whatever that job is anymore. They're just like, how can I do e-com? How can I do these side hustles that might accumulate enough income a month to then live? And the reality is there isn't. I mean, I don't think there is that possibility. So yeah, it's like I don't think, dude. If I was 18 years old right now and I was trying to get into this space, one, I would be looking at, okay, how can I work with Armand, myself, or Derek? And how can I do what they don't want to do, which is probably calls? How can I call for these people? And then at night, I'd be bartending, valet, or a server to make enough money in cash to pay my bills. And then not expect that I was going to make any money with these guys, at least for the first 6 months. And then in 10 years' time, I'm probably going to have 1,000 units in a portfolio somehow, some sort of equity or some sort of um, business built out on the assignment side or whatever, where I'm making 250, 500, a million a year. But that's what I would do if I was 18 right now, 19, 20 years old, and I was a younger generation. I would just try and find these people. And I know that wasn't the question, but I'm such a believer in that. The second thing, to answer Armand's point about, just not being on the phone. Yeah, I mean, 100%, dude. Like growing up, I was on the phone a lot because my only friends were my aunt and uncle, and they had a landline. because I moved around so much. I didn't have a lot of
Rotary
friends growing
dial?
up.
Was it rotary dial?
No, it wasn't that bad, but it was
Okay.
close.
Okay.
But it had a cord. Like, and so I would every Saturday I'd call my aunt and uncle, see what they're doing for the weekend, and like meet up with them and go golf or ride bikes or something, right? So I'm the guy in the friend group that's on the phone. Like,
Yeah.
instead of Snapchatting or texting what the plans are, I'm like, yo, what we doing? What are we doing? I'm like that guy. So I would encourage people, if they are younger and they're not confident on the phone, just become that person. Like, instead of texting your friends, just call them. 15 minutes. It's great practice. You know, you hear your tonality, you hear, you know, your how you are on the phone. And in reality, I think, you know, just don't overthink it, you know, just practice that way. And then just like Armand said, you know, make the calls and track the numbers. And you'll see over time what you need to focus on by tracking your numbers, and you know, you'll just get better. It's like anything else, dude. Confidence comes from repetition.
Yeah.
You don't go to the gym for a year and you go in there, you're probably not gonna be very confident. But if you go every day for a year, you're gonna be pretty fucking confident.
Yeah.
So
You will.
anyways.
Or if you go to the jujitsu gym like Armand.
Yeah, yeah.
And I
Yeah.
need to do that, man. I need to get into some jiu-jitsu, man. I got to come and get my ass beat one day.
Oh yeah.
Humbling.
They got good
Yeah.
gyms in Orlando, man. They got good gyms over there.
Which one? The one on I know there's one on Colonial there.
Yeah, I used to go to American Top. Well, I still do American Top Team over in Colonial, right off the 418 highway. I don't even
408?
remember
408.
408, and then yeah, there's a lot of good gyms. There's like Fusion XL. Anyways, I don't want to make this an MMA podcast, but yeah, there's good spots and
Yeah.
spots.
Yeah. Maybe I'll check it out.
Yeah.
You know, also when we're talking about looking at deals, I know obviously seller financing has been like a big, you know, it's really been a big pitch of why you get into the mobile home park business, because you've got mom and pop seller. They've owned this park since, you know, 1820. They've got a bunch of equity in the deal. And so it's ripe for seller financing options. And it is. But what we've found in the last, you know, 8 months is that, yeah, there's some opportunities for seller financing, but it's not as lucrative as, you know, you listen to some podcasts and say, oh my God, I only do seller financing deals. Like, I only do seller financing deals. Like, the only way that some of these deals work is like if they're complete dog shit deals. Like, you can't, like, you're not going to get this great tenant owned home park with these unbelievable seller financing terms. You're just not.
Yeah.
For one. And then number two, it just brings up so many other variables in the negotiation, because now you're not only negotiating due diligence time and, you know, your actual purchase price, whatever, you're negotiating interest, amortization, interest only periods, balloon payment terms. You know, it opens up to all these other variables in the conversation. So my point is saying, like, do you guys agree or disagree that I think most of these pundits that you see on Instagram or whatever, they're like, oh, I only do fucking seller financing deals. Well,
Yeah.
let me see the portfolio, dude, because I guarantee you that, you know, I just don't know how true that is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I from the broker side, and so now we can have good conflicting viewpoints on this, because I'm totally on the opposite side of you guys. I'm the broker side that's trying to get max value for clients. Meanwhile, you guys want to negotiate below market, really good return deals. Then like a big issue I see is that like a lot of new buyers in the space are people struggling to get deals done that are like those guys saying, oh, I only buy seller finance at 10 caps and I need city utilities lot and all lot rent park, or else I'm not buying it. And then they end up not buying any deals. Like, I think people new in the space, or people that don't own a lot of parks or aren't consistently trading parks in the marketplace, like they need to understand what the market's willing to pay for a property. Like the number one thing that makes me write someone off and I'm not going to send them deals anymore is if someone says like, oh, no one's paying better than a 10 cap right now. Like if someone sends me a message like that, I'm instantly thinking, one, you have no idea what you're talking about, so you're not going to be a good buyer. And two, like you are never going to be able to find a really great deal and get a deal done with that mindset, because you don't understand what the market's willing to pay. So either you have a lack of understanding of underwriting deals properly, or if you do truthfully only buy at these like crazy below market value prices, that's not coming from a wholesaler and middleman. You have to go direct to seller yourself and find those diamonds in the rough that haven't been contacted as much. Both of those aren't like yeah, like to go with your point, I'm not seeing a lot of crazy price deals like below market value and seller financing happening on anything nice. It's always crappier deals.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, unless you're buying something in frickin', Oak Tree, Iowa or somewhere, like,
Hey, don't throw
population
Iowa
of,
under the bus. Come on,
I don't know. Well, I just made it up. But like,
dude.
it's like unknown, man. Like my reference was to an unknown place with a population of 400. It might be a 15 cap, and then you have to sell it at an 18 cap, right? And in my opinion, I don't know why the hell you would want to do that.
Dude, Iowa's been getting so much hate lately. I had a deal in Iowa for one of
I
my
had to take a
investors.
shot, man, in Iowa, Oak Tree, Iowa. Look it up,
Dude,
man. I bet your ass there's a fucking Oak Tree, Iowa.
I don't think so, but we'll find out one sec.
If
But
you think Iowa gets hate, you should see this North Dakota deal I have. That's actually dude, dude, people do not like North Dakota either.
Is aren't you moving that deal?
Yeah, we're
Okay.
under contract now, but I mean, just I didn't expect the North Dakota pushback to be as much.
Yeah.
there is no Oak Tree, Iowa. Sorry, Derek.
Oh, we're gonna
But no, like, dude, I had a deal for an investor, and he was like, I own a park in Iowa already. It is the worst state to operate a park in ever, and I don't ever want to be sent one again from Iowa. I'm like, damn. Like,
Why?
I didn't go into details. It was just like, all right, like, I don't know what the headaches are, but I'm just like, all right, well, I won't do that anymore.
Yeah. I
Come
saw
on,
I
bro.
saw you yeah, and I saw you looking at something, Armand. You had something in the Northeast. Like, I think I told you the other day, I got sent this deal in Massachusetts, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, man, this is a great market. Like, I'm looking at it, I'm like, man, this is like an 8 cap going in. It's a big deal. It's good quality. And then I keep reading, and it's like the rent control board has approved you to go from 400 to 440 in the next 3 years. I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
how is that? Like, I'm sorry, but I just don't want to buy where I have to go and ask mommy what I can do with the property that I supposedly own. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious on the more left-leaning Democratic states that have rent control laws in there. Like, I understand if there's a level of rent control to where, like, because I know there are predatory landlords out there that will just raise rents if they think they can get it for no reason, right? But where they have these crazy caps or the legislation always sides on the tenant side to stop rent increases. Like, how do they plan investors to come in there and like actually improve the properties and put money into it and not let them run to shit without the ability to at least raise rents to recapture their cost back on that? Like, that's an interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, I mean,
not to get political, but I don't think they do. I think the state
here
eventually
we go.
will just
Yeah, I
want
think
we'll
eventually.
just want to buy them and run it, and it'll be a state controlled
Yeah, so
mobile home park.
like,
Like,
yeah, like I'm in New York City right now, and a big thing that's happening here is so there's a housing shortage in Manhattan or just all of New York City in general. So rents are going through the roof. And the problem is there's a ton of buildings that are sitting vacant right now because it doesn't make financial sense to make improvements to the property until it gets completely vacant and they could set a new rental rate, because if there's still tenants in the property, they can't raise the rents X amount. I don't know the exact laws, so I'm not an expert on this, but the gist of it is you can't raise the rents X amount if they're still paying tenants in the property, or it's like capped on how much you could raise it. So all of these down units, they can't spend the money to rehab them yet because they can't recapture
Mm,
return on its costs. So they're just letting entire buildings sit vacant in super desirable areas, mainly because there's like one or two tenants that still haven't moved out.
yeah, that's ridiculous because
Crazy.
like
Yeah,
it's crazy. And like, you should like, so when you go into a park, like, you know how much it is to pay for a road? 2 inches of asphalt? Like, dude, it's expensive. It's
yeah.
expensive, right? You know how much it is to do like all these other things to bring up the value of the park. And like, if you literally as an owner have no incentive to do that, right? When you're in a state like that. And I
yeah.
just can't see like, so if you're an owner and you buy that park, the aforementioned park in Massachusetts or where would the
Yeah.
market that was in, like, why would you go in? It's a bigger park. I'd have to imagine it's a 6-figure asphalt job, easy, right? Cleaning up trees, cleaning up, getting the guy that you hate next door that's dealing drugs out, like, or all these other things that go along with some of these properties. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me to have to deal with that because it's just, it is what it is because crazy stuff like Armand just said is going to happen. There's going to be
Yeah.
vacant, people are just letting this stuff go, right? And it doesn't make any sense for people to come in and improve the property anymore, which is it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's nuts, man. I mean, and not to segue this conversation, but I do want to point out because you were talking about the cost of paving roads, fencing, improving the parks, right? And I think so. Just segueing real quick into somebody who's new into the business. If you want to get into the business, make sure when you're underwriting for those things, so you actually know what your true cash on cash return is, if
Yes.
that makes sense. Because when for someone who like myself, who's in the business, who solely assigns deals, essentially, I find off market properties and put them under contract and assign them to an investor. That's what I do, and I make a fee. And if I were to send somebody a deal and I was like, hey, it's a 10 cap or it's a 9 cap, but they have to do $500,000 of improvement on this property or whatever, that's cash out of pocket to that investor. So if you are somebody in the space and you don't know that or don't underwrite that in the deal and you can't explain that, that's something you really want to make sure that you're making note of. And Derek obviously puts out a lot of great content on what it costs for that stuff, but just make sure you're doing that. Otherwise, you might not get a call back on that deal.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And that,
mean, like, I couldn't tell you enough is like, I talk to people daily. Like, hey, I got this deal. It's $1 million. I'm going to need to bring 300 grand because the bank wants 30% down. Not even factoring in any closing costs, not even factoring in, oh, hey, this is a value add deal. Are you going to raise the rents? Well, yeah, that's the plan. Well, what are you going to do in order to get to be able to do that? Yeah, sure. But like, there needs to be a fair exchange there. You need to, obviously improve the aesthetics of the park to even make it work, right? If there's private utilities there, I always bring 50
Yeah.
grand at
Yeah.
least, right? Because there's gonna be stuff that goes wrong. Like mom and pop have freaking, they've band-aided these septic tanks. They've band-aided the well because they didn't want to spend $1,000 on a new, pump or whatever, right? They didn't want to buy a new tank, holding tank for the well. They didn't want to put a new septic tank in, which I get because it gets expensive, right? Um, and so the stuff all of a sudden just breaks. Like you talk to the owner in due diligence and like, oh yeah, no, we haven't had anything wrong with the septic in a while. Well, it's been fine. And as soon as you buy it,
Yeah.
he could because he stopped putting tape on the septic tank in lot 4 or something stupid, right?
yeah,
Um, and then it all goes to hell. And then because you only brought 30% because the bank wanted 30% and you wouldn't even be able to close with that anyways, you are now having to run and figure out how you're going to pay with that. Yeah, you could pay with it from cash flow from the business, supposedly, but what I just assume that there's no cash flow there. But my point is that you need to bring, if the bank is asking you for 30% down, you're going to need to bring more like 45 to 50% to the table, depending on
Yeah.
the level of value add,
Yeah.
right? If it's a
Right.
level 1, if you're doing 1 to 5, if it's a level 4, you're definitely going to need to bring 45 to 50% just for stuff that you got to fix. And tree work. I was going through the park today when we were recording content and tree work. I'm like, my God, we still have $20,000 worth of tree work to do here. If we wanted to do it, like it's expensive and people don't
Yeah.
think about that stuff, which kills it.
Yeah, and that kind of, and I don't mean to cut you, Armand, if you're going to jump in, but that kind of brings full circle back to like these guys that are talking no money down deals. Like, there's no such thing, in my opinion, and some you guys may say it's something different, but I was trying to go the no money route, right? I was like, I don't got a lot of cash in my hand. I'm not very liquid. Like, how can I do some creative seller financing deal with no money out of my? It's not possible, in my opinion. Like, these people that are speaking that you see running these ads, they're trying to sell you something. Like they're trying to sell you a course on how to do this stuff that doesn't really and I know you guys have courses, so I'm not knocking on course salespeople. Like that's by these two guys' courses because they actually know what they're doing. But you see a lot of these people pushing these deals, no money down deals. That's not possible, in my opinion. I've been doing this I know for a not short period of time, but it's just I've negotiated a lot of seller financing stuff in some of these contracts. You're not going to get 0 down deals. I just don't see it. Maybe a lease option where you take over management of the park, maybe for a couple years and then buy it that way, maybe. But ultimately, you're going to have to bring some sort of cash close for the maintenance, even just for the baseline maintenance of the park. Like, I don't know, like improvements or whatever.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
type of that do that extra creative, super low down payment, close enough money, or like lease options. It's usually like the reason why they're willing to do that is because it's such a
Yeah, they got
oh,
10. They've got 10
Yeah.
code violations from the. Like they're
yeah, that they're almost like, no, please take it over because I don't want to.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, and I think like, we had talked about when Armand and I did our, master class, when we talked about doing deals with no money down, like we never said that it's like, hey, you have to bring zero to the closing table. It's like, hey, dude, if you don't have any money, quit being a little bitch and get off your ass and start making calls and be like, hey, I'm willing to do the work. I'm going to go find deals and bring it to people who can and
Yeah,
do have the money. You can get into your first deal with no money, exactly like I did,
dude,
right?
that's what I'm doing. Like
Like,
literally what I'm
so
doing.
you
Like,
got to bring cash to the closing table in one way, shape, or form, right? But you don't have to be the one to do it, especially if you're finding a good deal.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I think the easiest, and now I have a kind of backwards mindset. I know a lot of people disagree with this, but I think the liquidity of sourcing deals is better than buying deals for the most part, unless you find like a screaming deal. But yeah, if someone wants to get into buying properties with no money, like really, if you're just finding a deal like that, that assignment fees, you could just take that as equity in the deal. And that's a more effective approach than trying to get these creative, over the top, complicated, shitty deals that you probably shouldn't be buying in the first place with no money down.
right. No,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, find the better deal that underwrites. It's actually, because if the deal's good, you're gonna be able to sign it.
Yeah, yeah. So that's where it's like, yeah, go after bigger, nicer, more quality deals that pencil. Then you'll either find the money or just take a piece of the GP or however you want to split up the equity instead of an acquisition fee. And it's usually easier to do that on larger deals than small deals, which is crazy. Because even I was mind blown when I was first getting into the space. Like I started in residential too, and I did one residential deal. And I'm like, oh my God, I only made $2,500 after all this work. This is crazy. So
Wow.
it's crazy to see like a $5 million 100 unit property usually is an easier transaction, an easier negotiation than like that 15 unit mom and pop, because they usually have cleaner financials, more people are willing to put money in the deal. Like it's interesting how it's like a reverse mindset. But Derek,
No, yeah, dude. I get it, dude. The 2,500 residential. See, I did it a little bit backwards, and I
Don't
was
get Spencer started on residential.
oh
yeah.
my God, dude. Dude. No, see, I was dumb because, like Armand said, he's like, "Oh my gosh, I got $2,500 for one sale." My dumb ass was like, "Well, let's do 12 of those a month."
Yeah,
Like,
crazy. Yeah, dude,
dude, I did like 162 transactions in my last year in residential.
yeah,
Like, I'm like, and I do one commercial. I'm like, oh,
yeah,
this would
keeps it all. Yeah,
15 deals.
yeah. For the so the first commercial deal I did was this a mobile home park in Asheville, North Carolina. And now, because at the time I didn't know the buyer, I had to collaborate with another broker on it. So I ended up taking a really small portion of the fee, right? But all I did was make one phone call to the seller. First call, he tells me, F off, I hate brokers. I don't want to work with brokers. Anyways, I go to another broker who knows a buyer out there. We put them in contact. The guy agrees to pay us 2% on like 4.8 million at the time. Ends up closing at like 4.6, whatever the check was. Like all said and done, we made almost $100,000 off one phone call. We didn't do anything. We didn't do negotiation. We didn't even talk to the seller after we got the buyer involved. We just got an agreement. Next thing you know, he sends us a check 3 months later for $100,000. It's like, okay, this is
Yeah,
like
yeah. No, dude.
way better.
Same, dude. I was a residential agent. You'll love this, Armand, because I'm sure you do this all the time.
Yeah.
I was a residential agent, and my first commercial deal, it was actually I was at the cigar lounge in my hometown, and dude, I was hammered. So Derek, don't I'm not that person anymore. But at the time, dude,
A little drink doesn't hurt nobody.
yeah,
Oh,
dude.
God,
Okay,
here we go. You can
I was a
justify
half a bottle
anything.
of Glenfiddich in, dude, and this guy comes up to me. And we were just shooting this shit. And he was like, yeah, man, I'm buying it. I'm looking to buy a warehouse. I'm like, I could sell you a warehouse. Like, as a residential agent. No, no idea what I did. Literally that weekend, we shopped warehouses. I made like 50 grand on the deal. And what I didn't realize is all the attorneys are going to take this over. I don't do anything. Like Armand said, like, dude, like I didn't do anything. Like, I
Yeah,
was
on the big deals, when it's
yeah.
qualified buyers, attorneys, you literally sit back. You're just a guy who just forwards some financials over. It's like, here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I did. Made like 50 grand. And I'm like, Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe commercial is where to go.
Meanwhile, these
Uh,
mom and pops were like like mom and pop small transactions with like lesser quality buyers. We're out here like renegotiating, getting creative terms. We're reviewing contracts because they don't want to pay an attorney. Like it's crazy how the smaller deals are like infinitely more difficult than a lot of large ones. Not to say that there isn't a handful of headaches with large deals too, but yeah, it's a crazy twist.
Yeah, it's just but yeah, I mean, not to knock residential broker. I mean, dude, but if I was selling residential, you'd have to be selling $1 million plus like dollar deals for, then with a higher clientele. But back to, the mobile home park space. I mean, yeah, I mean, seller financing deals are available. I just did one. We had one under contract, and we went through due diligence, had to renegotiate the terms a little bit. We negotiated seller financing terms instead of cash at close, and less down at close, whatever. And so it's possible, there's still people willing to, do the deal, but it's, you just have to know what you're doing. Like if you're going to get into the commercial space, you got to know how to underwrite, you got to know how to make calls, you got to know you got to like actually learn the language. It's a language, in my opinion, like,
Yeah.
especially with mobile home parks. It's even a different language from a multifamily, in my opinion. So, I would be studying up as much as you can while you're making calls and how this language actually works, and how to actually underwrite a deal and learn, the difference between a park owned and tenant. Like I don't know how many people are like, oh, what's the difference between a park owned and tenant? I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't have known that a year ago, but now it's like, okay, like the park owns it, and the tenant owns it, and they pay lot rent, But just knowing that stuff before you jump in is probably also something I would advise.
Yeah. And I mean, you have to start like, I wasn't like an expert underwriter when I started, but I knew like I could back of the napkin math,
Yeah.
deals.
Yeah.
Right. And then, as you do more and you get more experience, like I don't need anything now and I can underwrite a deal to a degree. Um, Depending on how complex the deal is. But if there's cottages and RVs and storage units, like, it's a little bit more difficult to back of the napkin um math a deal. I wanted to say something on I got the mail yesterday and there was a car like this little thing from a residential broker like talking about what the houses in the neighborhood sold for and they're whatever. um I was like, man, dude, I'm glad I never would want to do that.
Yeah, and like the residential agents with their little cringy TikToks and
Oh
I'm
God.
I'll pass on
It's so funny too. It's so funny, and I don't know if y'all. I mean, I still follow residential stuff, but it's like you see all these coaches and gurus. Man, I should be a residential coach because I should start a course. But you see all these residential people that are like, oh, doing all these TikToks, and now they're back to, oh, you need to make 100 cold calls a day to get
that.
deals. We're like 2 years ago, it was like, oh, you need to do social media, and then it's like it always changes, and then the people never end up doing the calls anyways because no one wants to do it. But it always seems to revert back to, yeah, if you have to do real work to get clients. Like, oh my
Yeah.
God, like amazing. Same thing in this business. Like you have to do actual work to get parks and deals and opportunities. And it just is always going to revert back to that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's funny. I mean, I'm residential. I'm good.
Yeah.
I'll pass on that.
Derek, I had a question for you.
Hmm.
So someone in your position, right? When you were first buying parks, obviously you're just looking for individually, like, oh yeah, is this park a good deal? Is this park a good deal? Now that you have a pretty sizable portfolio throughout Florida and it centralizes around some good markets like Tampa, Orlando,
Yeah.
whatever. When you're looking at parks, like are you plugging in, like when you're looking at your exit down the road, are you thinking like, hey, now that I have this big portfolio, I could exit at this price per pad. So you're willing to get more aggressive now on the front end and not really care about cash returns and cash flow for the first few years because you know you have a higher exit than someone on a singular park basis because you have like a big portfolio to in theory exit or wrap a loan together later on.
Yeah, I mean that is one way to look at it, and it's interesting. It's an interesting question because like it's yes, you can look at it like that, but if
I'm
you're
curious.
like,
Yeah, I'm curious how much does that play into now that you have a big portfolio when you're underwriting individual deals? Like, are you looking at it like, all right, it probably doesn't make sense on paper with what this person's asking now, but considering I could exit the portfolio at let's say 100K a pad down the road because you got 1,000, 2,000 units within relatively close distance to each other.
yeah,
Is that
and
like a real factor you're looking into, or how do
it's definitely a thought. And Spencer, we talked about this yesterday, I think, because we
Yeah.
talked about those overpriced deals where we're like, hey, like, because there's different ways you can think about a deal, right? If you're doing your first deal, no, you shouldn't buy the 4 cap in Stuart, Florida, right? But if it's 100 pads, like it goes in, you can flip it into your portfolio. Yeah, that's something that you could think about. But I would not do a deal like that for your first deal,
Yeah.
like because it's not.
Yeah.
There's not going to be much cash flow. Like it's going to be hard in Florida to go in and raise the rents, like to where it would actually work.
Right.
And so, yeah, that is something that I think about, but also, I still like to get, cash flow as well. And, if it's a good deal, I just, mainly I don't like to compromise the location. The more and more in deals that I look at in other places and try to make sense of shit that's rural. And I'm like, dude, if I'm buying this at a 10, I got to exit it at a 12 to, entice someone to come to Oak Tree, Iowa, right? If I buy
There's no Oak Tree, Iowa, but yes, okay. No, yeah,
BFE, Iowa, or
I-
BFE, North Dakota, right?
yeah,
But the only way I'm going to entice someone to come in there is to do that. But what Armand saying is like, hey, once you get bigger, yeah, you can look at your exit plan in different ways, right?
Yeah.
Um, so
I'm curious,
yes,
how much does that impact your underwriting now? Or are you still really looking at like, all right, where can I get the cash from cash returns after like 1 or 2 years? Is that really what your main focus is? Or are you still,
yeah,
are
yeah,
you,
and I mean, like if we've got if we got 4 deals under contract that we're buying, right? Then like okay, it may make sense to throw in if we're raising money for 4 or 5 deals here, it may make sense to throw this other deal in because of the scale and the
yeah,
location that
yeah,
boost up the value of these other 4. And even in that vein, like if there's a 20 lot park close to that one that makes sense, like hey, it makes sense to throw that in too, in my opinion. Now, if you're just buying that 20 lot park, maybe it doesn't make sense to throw in there, but it does make more sense if you're already raising money for these 6 and this other 21 is right beside the other one. It fits in nicely because when you go to sell that, it's the person who buys it's not going to care if it's in a 3,000 lot portfolio. But if
yeah,
you're buying the 20 by itself, there are reasons why you would do that, right?
yeah,
Maybe you're going to have a big tax hit before the end of the year and you need to, accelerate the depreciation on this thing. Or maybe like that deal that we put an offer in on yesterday, it's smaller, but it's a high cash flow deal in a freaking sick location. Like, that hey, we can make sense of that. And the terms are great. So we can like
yeah,
close it pretty quickly.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And so I think it's a loaded question always when I get asked, what makes a deal a good deal? Well, it's very situational. It's
yeah,
very situational to what, like, if you're doing your first deal, I think it's got to be, you have to at least, if it's a stabilized deal, you got to hope that it's good. What you want to have some cash flow in there.
yeah,
Right. But if it's a value add deal, you just want to make sure that there's, enough juice in it to make it worth you doing all the work. Like if that cocoa deal, the first deal, if it only went from 425,000 to 600,000, that would have not been worth all that shit I had to go through every day.
yeah,
Chasing the crackheads out of the freaking, pulling up to the park and the crackhead is there with the spigot like this and they're like "Sh-"
yeah. No,
yeah.
it's
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, and and two, obviously, obviously want to look at the return from the investor, I assume as well, right? I mean, if you're raising, sure, if you had, like Derek was saying, if you have 5 or 6 deals, adding that maybe trophy asset that doesn't cash flow, it's probably what might help sell the raise, but it's also the one that won't cash flow. And so, but yeah, if that's the only deal you're going to buy, still, you still probably got to look out for that investor, I'm assuming, because this is all assumption for me. I'm still learning the investment side, but I would assume it's, you still want to make sure you're getting able to get that return for that investor. So you still want to buy reasonable deals at cash flow, right? I mean, unless you explain that it's a value add and it's the long-term hold, but
Yeah.
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 yeah,
You guys seen one thing I've been seeing at least it feels like this. I don't have any exact metrics to base off of, but I feel like I'm seeing more and more buyers more accepting to park own home and RTO income, mainly because, okay, sure, it doesn't finance for the full amount that they want, but there's at least more of a cushion for like cash returns the first few years. Like I noticed like one deal I was going through a big retrade recently. Like part of the selling point that I did as the broker to him was like, all right, you're a little worried about the upside. It's a little more um a little worried about the market and the upside of the deal. But my point to him was, well, I know you don't like all this rent to own income, but you could offer a higher pref to your investors now because even though, yeah, it's not penciling to this, you have more cash flow to pay a higher pref that might help you sell the deal to the investors more. And I think I'm seeing more people be accepting of park own home slash RTO income versus in the past where everyone's like, I'm only valuing this off the lot rent income, but I'm seeing more people kind of take it into account. Now, whether that actually translates to when they talk to their lender, that's a totally different story. But I am seeing people kind of move more favorably towards park on home income. Are you guys seeing the same thing, sort of? Or Derek, yourself as a buyer, have you kind of been moving towards that, or you're still we're lot rents only, baby?
No, I mean we've looked at that, but if the additional RTO income is capped, then
Yeah, it
no,
goes
it
away.
doesn't.
Yeah,
It doesn't make sense, right? Because that's going to go away inevitably at some point. But if you're valuing the park based on a a lot rent model
yeah,
at a lower cap rate, yeah, I may consider that my RTO income will help the cash flow.
yeah.
Um, I would figure out how to wiggle those RTOs and like, hey,
It's reality.
allocate some of
Yeah,
that. Let's reallocate some of that, however you would do that. But yeah, I've looked at that for sure. Because otherwise you're not going to make that many deals make sense. Like you have to get creative in how you're looking at some of this stuff.
yeah,
But if they like the sellers that are like trying to cap the RTO and like they're starting to value some of this stuff as like an apartment complex, like
yeah.
Oh,
it
dude.
just that those the numbers, it's just tough. It's just
Yeah,
tough.
Do you ever feel like though that the buyer pool and the market is kind of spoiled in mobile home parks? So what I mean by that is this, right? So there's a deal that I'm relaunching in January, and we did the reallocation. It's a lot of RTO income, and it had low lot rents. Let's say I'm spitballing numbers around 250 to 270 lot rents, and then RTO payment on that was another $300 on top.
Is that
Or
an oak tree?
no, not an oak tree. No,
Okay,
it's not a bad
got
market.
it.
It's actually decent. But I don't want to say what it is. You'll know what it is, and it's gonna be too. I'm trying to keep this a secret till we launch it.
Sure.
I'll tell you. But like we reallocated his RTO payments. Every tenant signed off, and now his lot rents are effectively 345, which is right below, like right a little bit below market, but it's right at market. So we effectively on paper did $100 rent increase. Now I have a few buyers involved that like the deal and they're willing to pay close to what we were asking before, at least close to the strike price of the property. Let's say they were at 1.8 before, now they're willing to pay 2.3.
Yeah.
My thought from the outside, third person view, I'm not the one buying, I'm not the operator. But I almost feel like that is like a entitled mindset. Like, is this deal really now $700,000 worth more just because you reallocated it? Like, don't you think banks and buyers are eventually going to come to the realization, maybe this is kind of stupid that we're not taking into account half the income of parks?
Yeah.
Like, because like I know like people like all right, most banks won't finance park on home income. But do you think that that might change over time? Because everyone has this perception. I'd assume banks have the perception it's a trailer park. We don't want to deal with the shitty homes and stuff, right? But as mobile home parks get better operators and the overall buyer pool and lenders start to see this, do you think that there's a world that they might actually count park on home income? Because it's a lot of income that is stable that isn't being taken into account. And like sometimes I deal with this. Like one park that I'm under contract for in Winston-Salem, North Carolina right now. It's all park on home income. Doesn't doesn't pencil anything near like what it does on lot rents. But if you look at this at a straight total cap rate, it's a 10 cap deal. Now, if you look at it just the lot rent model, but like we can't just like, pretend that that money isn't coming in. So do you guys think like it might shift to where park on homes and stuff, park on home income starts to get counted? I don't know. This is all
Yeah.
theorized down the road.
Maybe. Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. I mean, maybe if it's newer homes, it makes more sense
Yeah,
to
true.
me. But
Yeah.
like, it's really going to even out anyways because you got to slap a 50% expense ratio to the other side of it versus 35.
Yeah.
right? So really, it's how different is it? But if
Yeah.
you're going to count the park-owned home rent and still use the 35% expense ratio, which I do see, like
Which, yeah, it doesn't make sense. Yeah,
it
that's
doesn't
just
make sense at that point.
deferred maintenance or just delusion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I think that may yes, on a park that has newer homes, I could see that making more sense.
But
But
it just seems delusional to me that the same property I have, all we did was nothing else but just rewrite up leases. The income's exactly the same, and now people are saying, "Oh, I was only at 1.8 before, but now I'm at 2.3." Oh, what's up, little guy?
Let's go.
yeah, no, I see what you're saying, but on the same token, all right, we're finishing up here. Forgot what I was going to say, but you were talking about the income on park-owned homes, right?
Yeah,
I forgot
yeah.
what I was going to say about that.
Me and Spencer can carry on the podcast. We need 5 minutes.
No, you're good. You're good.
Yeah.
Duke's
Well,
going
I
to be
guess
on the
my
podcast too.
my thought process is and I don't really know too much, but just a thought would be, would the bank have to go in and appraise each home then, if that's technically park owned? Because if they're lending based on individual homes, so they have to go in and appraise each individual mobile home,
Yeah, I guess assess the value and like
Yeah.
the lifetime of that
time
home.
value of the home, and go into that process, which I don't know. I have no idea if that's what it would take. And then at that point, would they say, okay, well, this home's going to fall over in a year. We can't assess, I don't
Well,
know.
yeah, I mean, right, because most of the homes, like, they're not going to have any appraised value. Like, they're
Right.
just not like a 70s mobile home. A Kelly Blue Book value is like, or whatever. It's nothing, right?
I mean, it should be negative because you got to get rid of it.
Yeah, it should be negative,
Yeah.
but also you have to take into account the headache factor because people get into the mobile home park business for that tenant-owned home lot rent, like, kind of thing. If they're like, dude,
Passive
if I'm
income.
well, yeah, air quotes passive income, but if they're gonna buy, these park owned homes, right, and they're gonna count the income, and I'm like, dude, like, I'm just not gonna buy it, you know,
Yeah.
if but I do see what you're saying. Like, it's so weird that the allocation changes.
Yeah, like
I see what you're saying in that perspective. Yeah, it seems stupid because they're still park owned homes.
like I'm like 10 years from now, once this becomes a little more mainstream, banks understand the like long-term value of income in mobile home parks. Will they change their sentiment and start counting park on home stuff? I think that might be like a 10-year trajectory down the road. That might be something. So now it's like people who just picked up park on home parks all cash and they operate them good over the next 5 years. Maybe one day lenders just across the board, like, we're counting park on home income, valuations through the roof. And
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
I
but
could
you're
see
still
it.
going to have that higher expense ratio. So I
yeah,
don't even know if the
Yeah.
valuation would go through the roof,
yeah. And I know a lot of operators say like park on homes usually break even on their, if you really truthfully look at the maintenance long term, that it
Well, the
actually,
maintenance long term, and then the additional management that you have to have, the additional calls that come into the office, the
but
additional
but
stuff.
apartments already operating like that. So that's where I'm like, this seems a little crazy to me. Now, I get it, 1970s crappy homes, one thing, but like this deal in Winston-Salem talking about when it's all 2005 and newer Clayton single wides and really great tenant base. I'm like,
Well,
does
yeah,
income really not mean anything? Like,
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's
seems
interesting.
crazy. Just seems crazy. It's like a theory I have for like long term in the industry.
yeah.
You mean
I mean,
you
for
mean there's
something like that with higher quality houses, I think that could,
yeah.
you know,
Derek, you mean there's maintenance on park-owned homes? Because a lot of these sellers I talk to say, like, when I look at their books, there's no
Oh yeah.
maintenance.
oh
Like,
yeah, no,
As they're calling me as I'm calling them, and they're at Home Depot,
yeah.
with the new
Yeah.
dump truck they just bought for the park.
yeah, like this guy, we're trying to buy his park. He's like, it's an RV park, and he's like, oh yeah, he grosses, 50K a month or something, and he thinks his only expense is the oh, that's great, honey.
Yeah.
He thinks his only expense is the like electric bill every month, nothing else.
Yeah.
Septic
Yeah.
tanks never have any maintenance. Him going there 5 days a week and working, that doesn't count. Property taxes, oh, that just doesn't count.
Yeah. A manager.
Okay,
What's that? Oh, you mean
what's a
repairs?
manager? Oh,
You
you
don't
need a
need to budget.
manager?
I've owned
No,
this
I want
years.
to come to the park and spread dirt every
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do.
Yeah. You guys don't need a manager for this park. What?
Yeah.
I have some sellers that tell me that all these investors are lazy, that they don't want to do any work. I'm like, who wants to buy themselves a job? Like,
That's why they're called the investor.
yeah, literally.
Like what?
Yeah. Let's look up the
You're answering your own
definition.
question. But yeah, no, I mean, back to the park owned thing too. And Derek, if you got to get running, I get it. But I will say though, I did learn a new model, which I find very fascinating. And that is, if you do have some liquidity or are able to raise, and let's say it's a 12-unit park and they're park owned, especially in Florida, I'm seeing, some of the buyers I work with, they're like, yeah, dude, I could sell these at 25 a pop and regain my down payment.
Yes,
Or
dude.
it's insane. I'm like, oh,
So that's something just 3 years ago when I first got into business, no one took into account profit on park owned homes from
Yeah.
selling off. Now people are just to hit the pricing. I'm seeing more and more buyers now underwriting. Oh, I could probably sell this for 30K. If
Yeah.
it's a good market and it's a good home, like they're
Yeah, it
actually
has to be a good market.
yeah,
Otherwise,
and that's why I preface Florida because, and that's again, we're only really looking at deals right
you can
now.
sell a home for 70K in Florida for sure.
Yeah, well, and it's
Good market,
crazy. Yeah, it's like, okay, park owned rents, $1,200. It's like, okay, well, we could probably sell this off. Let's just say conserve. It's an older home. Let's say we could sell it for 25K. And let's say it's, 10 park owned units, it's 250 that you're getting back. And then now you're charging it 500 a month lot rent. Now I'm not saying some of those are going to be RTOs or whatever, but refund, then that's how you lower your cash basis on the purchase price and you underwrite it at the lot rent or do a refi at the lot rent. I mean, yeah, I'm just seeing a lot of those deals, and I'm like, so again, being creative in that sense, learning those different terms if you're getting into this space of how to get deals done. I mean, that's just another way to look at it too.
Yeah, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. It still has to be kind of a correct park, but it's just, it's another way to look at deals for sure.
It's our little guy's opinions. Do you have any opinions on park on home income?
I don't know. What do you think? I don't know.
He's gonna be a natural podcaster though. Armand, did you know that my son is also named Duke?
Really?
And he was born 3 weeks before Derek, and Derek and I weren't even really texting that much at the time.
Oh,
had no idea.
Had no idea. He had no idea I had a kid. 3 weeks before his Duke was born, I named mine Duke. He just posted on Facebook or Instagram like, "Welcome to the world, Duke Vickers." I'm like, what the fuck? So,
well, cool guys. Yeah, we'll definitely have to do another episode here, but I appreciate you guys coming on.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having us on.
Absolutely. Next time, Armand and I will have you on our podcast, the Cigar Hour.
No,
dude, we're doing that one in person. I'm coming to Tampa.
We have to.
Yeah, we already talked about doing that. We
Yeah.
talked. We got to do that. We got to do
100%.
that.
Yeah,
Absolutely. All right,
cool guys. Well, thank you all for watching the MHP show. If you want to check out Armand, he's all over social media. Spencer's all over social media. You can check out, what is it, CREDealAccelerator.com and MHPvalue.com. Is that correct?
Yeah. If you're looking to learn how to find deals, all the tips and tricks like brokers in the industry, and how to use automation to rapidly source deals, CREDealAccelerator.com. If you're a mobile home park owner and you're looking to sell your park and you want to get 10% above what it's worth, MHPvalue.com. I'll come up with a free evaluation, an exact game plan for you to sell your property, exact reasons why you could get overpaid for your property if it's a possibility, and you'll at least know your true value in today's market. Even if you don't want to sell, it's 100% free, MHPvalue.com.
Boom.
Yeah, I've got nothing like that.
If you want a great deal, Spencer's got you.
If you have a deal, bring it to me. I can probably get it closed.
Boom. There we go. There we go. Spencer's on social media, Instagram, Facebook. You can check me out. Please like and subscribe to the podcast. Leave a great comment, thumbs up. That pushes us up the rankings. So check us out every Monday for the MHP show. I will see you guys next week. Peace.
So,
So, yeah.